Okay, let's get this community conversation underway. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope this format is conducive to your obligations and lifestyles. My name is Ed Rich. I work in the communications department here at Maplewood Richmond Heights. We are talking about district finances tonight, and we have just the right people to do that. We are joined, of course, by Superintendent Dr. Bonita Jamison, our new Director of Finance and Business Services, Nichelle Hunter. One of her team, Tony Arnzen, accounting manager, is also with us tonight, and we are blessed to have everyone on board. I do want to begin with Ms. Hunter just very quickly. Welcome. You haven't been on the job for very long, but looks like you're settling in. So if you want to turn that microphone on and just say a little howdy and a little bit about yourself, I think we'd all appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Nichelle Hunter, Director of Business and Finance, here for a total of maybe 10, 12 days now. It has been an awesome experience so far. Great people at MRH to work with. I have been in my career worked with SOPS formerly as a director of finance there, and I am looking forward to working with all of you in order to make this district even stronger.
All
Good to
right.
see all of you tonight.
Okay, welcome to your first or second, actually, community engagement event. This is terrific. All right, I want to tell you before we get started with Dr. Jamison and her presentation that we are recording this for the benefit of those who are unable to be here. If you want to jump in with a question, you can type into the chat box, which is at the very lower center of your screen, or you can tap that little raise hand, and then I will see that, and I will be able to elevate you with audio and video permissions, and you can jump right in and let us know what's on your mind or what questions we might be able to answer. Dr. Jameson, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you for our community members who are able to join us tonight. And thank you to those who will watch this recording later on to learn a little bit more about our financial outlook and the pressures, both federally, regionally, and locally, that are impacting or could potentially impact our financial stability. The goal tonight is to provide a comprehensive overview of the emerging financial landscape and also to share some brief recommended actions as we move forward. So we want to, of course, see what you want to learn from this session and guide the questions that you have. So please take a moment, drop your questions in the chat that you may have that you are hoping to get answered tonight. Or if you're a brave soul, feel free to unmute and toss it out into the atmosphere. Any burning questions coming through? All right. Well, again, the purpose is to look at those financial factors impacting MRH now and also looking into the near future. And then examining those risks and opportunities that surface both at the federal, state, and local levels, and to answer any questions and gather your feedback as we move forward, particularly as we enter the budgeting season. We recognize that your tax dollars primarily are here to support our teachers who are in the classroom, who support our students and resources that they have. So we want to make sure that we are good stewards as we move forward. So going back to our per pupil expenditure, I think it's critical that we start here on this slide and looking at some of the surrounding St. Louis County districts. Maplewood Richmond Heights currently invests $17,000, 148 of our taxpayers' dollars to educating our students. And if you look at the list of districts that are surrounding, there are only two districts that are expending more than what we currently are. That would actually be three. So you have Brentwood, Clayton, and University City that are spending more per pupil. And this is critical because the majority of your funds are used to educate students in the classrooms, and the resources that we provide are a result of your tax benefits to our district. It's important to highlight some of our academic success. I won't read those to you, but I will leave that there for you to review. In addition to our athletics and activities offer, continue to show why MRH is a destination for families and students. One of the questions that we often get is how do we fare in comparison to surrounding districts? This is our 2025 annual performance report that's released by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. MRH this year was the #1 K-12 district in the state on our annual performance report. And while that is one number, it is not the only number that impacts how we educate students. You heard us talk about, if you reviewed the video or had an opportunity to visit our State of the District update, how we invest in social emotional learning and our innovative approach through our metaphors to allow students to show mastery of their learning while also tapping into their interest. And that's been something that has been a part of MRA history for quite some time as we continue to build that out. But we are grateful for our teachers who have contributed greatly in where we are, as well as our students who are the individuals who take the tests and our families who support us financially so that we can provide a quality education to our students. So what does our financial stewardship look like? So right now, our last audit gave us a top level opinion during our independent and no findings, and continuing to highlight that the administration alongside the board is continuing to be fiscally responsible, as well as ensuring that our controls are in place or protecting the funds that support the decisions that are made in the district, as well as saving approximately $3.7 million across 8 years in refinancing of bonds and continuing to be good stewards. And the district continues to bolster A minus, double A minus rated with Standard & Poor's as we continue to move through this financial season. So we're going to start off with talking about the federal funding outlook and what that impact is for MRH. And so we rely heavily on the finances from a tax revenue standpoint that we receive from our families. That's about 81% of our annual budget, local taxes. But approximately 2.39% of MRH's revenue is actually from federal funding. And the majority of that money is through our varying title programs. And this is critical because those title programs that we offer, as well as the funding for these programs, ensure that we're able to continue to provide support for students who are at multiple ends of the spectrum academically. So title funds, federal funds support expenditures for reading specialists, for our coaches, as well as some of the other programming that we offer in the district. So you see that it's highlighted there as a pressure point. We are anticipating for the upcoming fiscal year to plan for at least a 20% reduction in Title 1. And from what we're hearing, Titles 2, 3, and 4 could potentially be eliminated or reduced as well. This may also have an impact on how we fund those positions that are supported through title funding. Another factor we want to highlight is the restructuring of the U.S. Department of Education. While this may not seem like a critical piece, particularly because a lot of our money flows through the State Department, it does impact the delays in receiving funds. And so there's a lagging receipt of funds. So typically we're spending down our funds that we have in the operating budget as we wait for those funds to actually come into the district. And the last two items, which are critically a part of who we are from an identity standpoint as we think about equity, is transgender student protections and also our work around diversity, equity, inclusion. And so the new restrictions that are coming down from the federal government, it can impact funding and the risk and concern come along with if school districts don't comply with any mandates that are moving forward. So want to keep that at the forefront because that potentially could impact our federal funding outlook. I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions, if we have any community members who would like to unmute or have something answered. Ed, do we have anything in the chat?
No takers yet.
So the state funding outlook, we've identified multiple areas here, looking at the state school formula modernization task force. And this one is really looking at changes with updating the formula without increasing overall cost to the state. And so there is a committee or a task force work together to see how they can add additional funds into the formula, because currently inflation and some of the increasing costs outpacing the current formula that has been in place for the past 20 plus years. In addition to this, they are looking to incentivize models and discontinue some parts of the model, and they're using other states such as Tennessee and Arizona to be a part of that. And then also exploring protections around students who receive services through special school districts or have IEPs, what that looks like to decrease inequities, and then directing funds to areas where um, districts are actually performing. So that's a critical piece as we look at how that can impact districts such as MRH, particularly because we're so small and rely heavily on our tax base. The next item for the state funding outlook is the Legislative Committee on Property Taxes. And here they're looking at reassessment practices and exploring reforms that may increase in assess valuation. And the challenge with this is that this could permanently limit revenue that we receive. And this is again critical because we rely heavily on our property taxes. It also could potentially expand tax freezes, creating new exemptions for specific groups. And in looking at our personal property taxes currently, this comprises of about 18 to 20% of our local assessed valuation, which is also under scrutiny. Third item that we are really tracking closely is voucher tax credit expansion, and looking at what is currently allocated for vouchers and tax credits, which is $50 million annually to private schools through the tax credit program, which is in essence taking funds from public school education, placing them into private schools for use through this program. Then the other piece is looking at this desire to expand charter and removing the general revenue funds from public schools. And then the last one is state income tax elimination proposal. So if you watch the state of Missouri's update, they talked about the intent to advance plan to eliminate Missouri's income tax. And again, this is part of how we receive revenue through the foundation formula for transportation and school funding streams. And so the transportation piece for the last 2 years, the state has fully funded transportation, but if this is eliminated, districts will have to assume the responsibility of covering the cost for that, which will come out of our operating budget and also impact our fund balance. And then lastly, looking at the replacement tax structure or shortfall would significantly impact our funding as well. Continuing with our local funding outlook. And so a lot of the work that we do when we're forecasting is looking at trends across multiple years. So that would be historical taxes, ending operating fund balance, and then our 5-year trend funds currently with the senior property tax freeze. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Reassessment and new construction, sales tax sensitivity simulation that was completed and presented to the board, as well as upcoming municipal tax initiatives that will be hitting our community. So here in front of you, you have two tables. The first one is local revenue by fund, and it shows fiscal year 22 to 23, and then also 23 to 24, and concluding with fiscal year 24, 25. And you can see the breakdown and the growth across all total funds and what that looks like year over year. The second table, which is historical taxes, this particular chart shows year over year again where we receive funds in the general fund, debt service fund, and then capital project fund. So a portion of the money received from tax dollar goes into capital project for projects that need to be completed across the district. And again, you can see the growth across those historical taxes as well. So as we talk about growing our fund balance and what our operations ending fund balance has been, in 2022, you see the fund balance was right at 53%. And thinking about what has occurred in those spaces, and then looking at previous years, you had ESSER money that was actually being provided to districts, which helped grow the fund balance in a district, in addition to money being placed in accounts as we had actual spend downs. And you look at the 2023 school year for the fund balance, that was an intentional spend down, and based on increases in salaries for teachers, and you continue to see that. Then you can see the increase for the 2025 2026 school year, which is a result of positions B and E. So we are financially in a healthy place as we think about our fund balance and looking at the progression from 2022 to 2026. One of the things that we wanted to look at was a conservative and moderate scenario based on higher cost growth and slower revenue, and then expected cost growth and natural AV increases. And you can see, looking out and projecting, using fiscal year 26 as our baseline, which is at the end of this year, our fund balance is supposed to include at 43.9%, is the starting point. But you can see, depending on the scenario that is used, whether we take a conservative approach or a moderate approach, how our fund balance continues to spin down. So at the end of fiscal year 29, if we take a conservative approach, we're looking at 24 to 28%. And if we take a moderate approach, the fund balance would be at 28 to 32%. And that's a range based on all things that have been examined and included in this presentation. So looking at Prop C revenue, the 3-year trend, you can see how this is actually progressing for us. And so for the 23 and 24 school year, percent changes noted at 5.48%, and for the 24-25 year, 7.26% change from Prop C revenue received, the change from the prior year. So while there are many factors when we're heading into the budget season and thinking about the pressures that exist at the federal and state level, there are other key considerations that we think about. So looking at Prop B and E and the impact, and so very grateful for our community for overwhelmingly supporting the 2 referendums that came forward. We were able to offset costs from the budget for facility and infrastructure improvements versus using the funds that are in the capital project fund, in addition to the 50-cent transfer, which allowed us to continue to increase salaries for competitiveness, which helps with teacher retention. And so this past school year, teacher retention was at 95%, and the previous year it was at 93%. And we do believe that increase in salaries contribute to the retention rate increasing year over year. Another key consideration is employee benefits. And so we are members of TSD Trust. For the 25-26 fiscal school year, we had a 19% increase in insurance costs. We recognize that this is also an important benefit for our staff. And we have not yet received the increase for the 26-27 school year, but we can anticipate the increase will be anywhere from 20 to 25%. And so that's compounded as we think about where the CSD trust is, and also districts having to prepay some of that cost up front as a means to support them and some of the loss because of the high costs of claims. And again, you can kind of see insurance costs listed there as well. Employee salaries from a certified standpoint, again, grateful for the board for approving the increases, again, helping with retention rate, but you can also see the impact on the district's budget of about 1.77 million or 1.3 million as we look at the base salary driven and also the step that teachers see. I will say that we've been with these funds, and the current interest to date is about $372,000 across multiple accounts. And so those are funds that we're earning interest and are able to use for additional bond projects and other things that surface in the district that potentially were not budgeted for. So what does this mean for our families? Really, it's about core programming. We are very clear about those things that matter most. We want to ensure that we have high quality staff in classrooms. We want to make sure that students continue to have exposure through metaphors at each of our levels and funding for that, ensuring that our facilities are safe and that students are able to engage in programming, whether that's from the athletic side or for some of our clubs. And then also prioritizing staffing supports and fiscal sustainability. So we want to continue to focus on being competitive within the region. This was outlined in the board's budget directive, not only for teaching staff, but also for support staff and administrators. And then the last piece for us is to continue to communicate clearly and transparently about decisions that are being made with your tax dollars and eliciting input as we move forward across the school year and as we enter budget season for the upcoming year. That concludes our financial forecasting update. We welcome any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Jamison. Really appreciate the plain language description of all of those important areas. It's so very helpful. Folks, this is a unique opportunity. We have not just Dr. Jamison, but we have our business director and a member of her team, our accounting manager, Mr. Arnzen. So now is the time to speak up. Again, you can use the chat. Just type in a question if you want, raise your hand, and we'll bring you on board so you can ask it yourself. And while we're waiting, thank you to the administrators I see who have joined us, and board member is with us tonight. So grateful for that. Did we do that good a job? We.
Want to also offer if additional questions that you have. Ms. Hunter is always open and willing to engage, so feel free to email her, or you can email me or Ed Rich, and we will be certain to provide those responses in addition to the presentation that goes out.
I've placed her email address in the chat.
Are there any topics
Oh, here we
from?
go. Yeah,
Oh,
we do.
yes.
Stand by. Ms. Garwood, I believe you have permissions to open your mic and video if you like. Oh, well, maybe she dropped out. I did see the hand up.
There's a Karen hand up.
There we go. And all right, Karen, if you'd like to see if you can open your mic and or camera. There you go. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Making sure I click the right things here. Just to clarify, with the percentages forecasted that you were talking about, with the general fund potentially reducing in percentage in the future, that's just based on the current, like without any sort of funding changes on the state or federal level.
Correct.
Okay.
And I will say that's a great question because the last budget amendment, as we had seed of title funds, a lot of the positions that support our students who historically have underperformed are supported from title funds. So reading specialists, coaches, and things of that nature. So if funding is to decrease, we'll have to make adjustments and bring that from the operating budget.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Friends, we have a question as follows. Aside from writing to representatives, is there a way to speak against the potential tax changes?
There absolutely is. And I am a member of MASA, and they provide opportunities for school district superintendents to visit the Capitol, but also all of our representatives. If you're interested in writing them, we can provide that information to you. Are there other questions from a finance standpoint that you'd like to have more information on?
Yeah, we do have a question here. Will the senior tax freeze be a one-time revenue drop, or will this be compounded year over year?
That's a great question. This year, we actually originally budgeted for $500,000 in the senior tax freeze. That number actually came in at about $313,000. And because it's the first year, it is very difficult to forecast out because you have more individuals qualifying, more individuals who can apply. And year over year, those will be funds that we will continue to not receive. Tony, any input? Nichelle, any input that you think would be beneficial for the community?
I just expect that 313,000 number to grow um, next year. I think it'll be larger next year.
All I can say is I concur.
Are there areas where community would like to learn more about expending of funds? Or where there are potentially deficits? That's one of the things we didn't include this presentation. But just to note that we continue to run a deficit in our pre-K program of about $300,000 annually. Well, Ed, I guess we did a phenomenal job of providing information and answering questions.
Sounds like it. All right. Another big thank you to everyone who took time out. It's a busy night. It's a busy night around campus. There's lots going on. I know that Dr. Jamison is speaking to the Richmond Heights City Council later tonight, so she's got her hands full as well, just like everybody else. One of our attendees says this was very clear and very helpful, and she thanks you, as do I. That's going to wrap up this January edition of Community Conversations. I believe our next one is not until March. That's March 3rd. Topic to be announced. Everyone have a great night. Stay safe and stay warm. Take care.